All right, so it is being recorded. I understand that all students will make it for the session. I'm going to stop the transcription because it doesn't do it very accurately. It mixes up some of the words. I'm just going to leave it as a recording. All right, so for those that can't make it, you can access the recording. Even for those that have attended right now, that are in this class, you can access the recording. I'm sure a lot of you want to watch it again, especially for the later sessions where we start doing a lot of calculations and numerical work. To kind of refresh your memory or to get a better understanding, students do tend to watch it more than once. So the recordings will be available. I will make the recordings available on YouTube, and then I will share the link with everyone. Okay, so don't try to find it on the system because the next day or by the next day, I load it onto YouTube and I'll share the link. All right, so like I was saying, things that you need to have access to, make sure you have access to your textbook, to the ARC system, and your calculator, your statistics calculator. Try to get access to the Casio. That's definitely better. It's much more user-friendly, and it's also the one that I use. So when I'm working through problems in these sessions, I'll be explaining how to do it with the Casio calculator. I don't have a Sharp calculator. So if you have the same one as me, it doesn't have to be the exact same model. It just needs to be a Casio FX series, I believe. And you'll be fine. All right. So make sure you have access to all those three. Any questions so far before I continue? Let's leave the floor open for a second. Okay, on to any questions? All right. Do try and explore the ARC environment. Go through all the units and the resources within it. Get comfortable with it. If you're having problems with it, please do let me know. And if I can't help you, I will get someone else to assist you on how to make the most out of that system. All right, but you do need to be comfortable with accessing that system. Okay, so like I said, those are the resources you need to have access to. You don't need your calculator today. I am going to start the first learning unit, and that is very theory-based. Okay, so you just need to read through the textbook for this and the online material. There's not much calculations. There's not any calculations involved. You just have to familiarize yourself with the theory. But I'll briefly go over some of the theory to give you an idea of what these concepts and these definitions mean to help you kind of kickstart your journey into learning Unit 1. All right. And then next week, we're going to kick off learning Unit 2. And then from that week onwards, it's just calculations. Every single session that we do will involve doing calculations and solving problems. Okay, the question by Eric. I do not, well, I do, but I can't share that. You can contact the librarian and they can make arrangements for that or tell you what to do. So yeah, of course, I can't share the PDF textbook. If you're not sure how to contact the librarian, please just drop me an email and then I will put you in touch with them. Eric, let me know if that helps. If you still have a question about it. Okay, great. All right, so let's begin. I am going to share my screen. This session shouldn't be too long, especially since it's the first session. It's more of an introductory session, introducing myself and what items you need to tick off to have access to, etc. Learning Unit 1 is going to be mostly covered by you by reading through the notes. So I'm going to share my screen. Please do let me know if you can't see it. I'm sharing it now, and I'm going to share a whiteboard here. Give me a thumbs up or a message in the chat that you can see it. If you can't, let me know. It's the whiteboard. Doing good? Let's see. Okay, fantastic. All right, let's begin. So, like I said, it's very theory-based. So what is this course about? It's basically covering statistics. And what is statistics? You may have heard that term before. Statistics is primarily focused on estimating. All right, and why do we estimate? Wouldn't we always prefer to have the accurate value? And yes, you would be right. But the problem is, in the real world, it's not financially or time-wise feasible to get the precise answer. And let me give you an example. Let's say Toyota needed to do a survey and it wanted to know the average age of a driver of a Toyota vehicle. Now, they don't care what model it is. They want to know, as long as you're driving a Toyota, they want to record you and your age, and they want to get this data for the entire country. Right now, as you can imagine, there's a lot of people driving Toyotas in South Africa, and to actually get in contact with every one of them, time-wise, it's going to take too long. It's not practical, and financially, it's going to cost a lot. So the next best thing they can do is make an estimate of it, and that's where statistics comes in. All right, so that's why we need to understand statistics and appreciate its application. All right, so what they could do instead is, instead of getting in touch with everyone in South Africa that drives a Toyota, what they would do is they would create a sample, and that sample could be, as a hypothetical example, they could just take 10,000 Toyota drivers from each province. So that isn't everyone, but it might be enough to provide a reliable estimate. Now, to kind of visualize this, what I'm saying is, so I'm going to draw this here. And the color, yeah. So this is your full population. So this is everyone in South Africa that drives a Toyota. Right? This is the full population. But what happens is we create a sample. So the sample will be smaller than that. Right? So we'll let the sample be represented by the blue circle. So this blue circle, this is the sample. And the black circle is the full population. Now remember, when I started off this example, I said Toyota were interested in the average age. So if they knew the age of everyone, they would just add it up. And let's say it was 1 million people, they would divide it by 1 million. That's how they would get the average. Now, the average for the population is something we don't know. And that's what they would wish to know. That's, if we had all the money and the time, we could work that out. Now, we represent that average by this symbol here, mu, like a funny U, right? But the average for the sample has a different symbol. It's this here, X bar. Now, this X bar we can work out because the sample is smaller. What we tend to do is we let this X bar estimate mu. And we have these dreaded terminology, which you do need to understand. The true value for the population, the true average, this is a parameter. This is what we call a parameter. So the parameter is generally the true value of the population. And in this case, the parameter of interest is the average of the population. We try to estimate it with a sample statistic. And this is the sample statistic. So this is the statistic or sample statistic. I'm just going to write sample statistic. We use that to generally estimate the true value, which is parameter. All right. So does that example give you an idea of what a population is, what a sample is, what a parameter is, and what a sample statistic is? I'm going to go back to the chat and see if everyone's okay with that, or do you have any questions? Silence. Everyone okay? They fall asleep. I do understand it's a bit late after work. Question, go for it. Oh, okay. You just give me a thumbs up. All right. Okay, so no questions? All right. So the example I gave you here is for averages, but it doesn't have to be restricted to averages. We could be interested in proportions or percentages. An example of that is, okay, instead of the average age, maybe a company wants to know what proportion of South Africans smoke. Now that isn't an average, that's a percentage, all right? So instead of these symbols, for proportions, the true value we represented by pi, all right? So that parameter for the proportion is shown by this symbol. And for the sample, instead of an average, we use the proportion of the sample. So remember, we wouldn't be able to get in touch with everyone in South Africa that smokes. It's just not feasible. So we can create a sample in a similar way, like what we did with the Toyota example. Okay, how we create that sample is beyond the scope of this course. You won't be covering that. You won't be expected to know that. What you would be expected to know is how to use the sample to estimate the true value. Okay, but how you get the sample, that's beyond the scope of this course. All right, so that's an example of proportions. This example, if you're interested in, proportion of smokers. All right, so is everyone okay with this? I'm going to move on to a different part of learning in one right now, but I just want to check if there's any questions. I'll come back to the chat. Everyone good? I would appreciate feedback. I'd really appreciate some feedback. If you're not understanding, please don't hesitate to let me know. I am more than happy to go back and explain it in a different way. So do not feel shy in these sessions, okay? I guarantee you, if someone doesn't understand, if you don't understand it, there's someone else who doesn't understand it. And there's never such a thing as a stupid question, ever. Always ask. All right. So I'm just going to take that, those few thumbs up as everyone's okay. And I'm going to move on to something else. So the next part I'm going to cover on Learning at One, which you're going to come across when you read through your textbook, is data types and random variables. All right. Yep, dreaded terminology again. Okay, so that's what Learning at One is pretty much about. A lot of terminology, definitions, and understanding what they mean. All right, so let's start off with firstly, what is a random variable, right? Random variable, I'm just going to write RV because that's generally the shorthand for random variable. Random variable. It's something, okay, as the word variable is in the title, it varies. So you can capture it, but you're trying to measure it for one thing, but it can vary. So for instance, a random variable is, I'm trying to capture is age. Okay. And why it varies is because if I had to capture this for me, my age would be different than when you captured it. Okay, our ages would likely be different. So it varies, and that's why it has the name random variable. Okay, so that's all it pretty much is. Okay, it's a variable that captures something of interest, and whatever that interest is, it depends on the problem. If you were trying to capture the temperature over a month, then that would be a different random variable. Right. Now, random variables, when I mention random variables, try to think of a questionnaire. Right. I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, would have answered questionnaires at some point in your life. And some questions would ask, what is your age? All right. So everyone would enter their value for their age over here. All right. So someone would enter 30. Another person would enter 28. I have never met anyone that would capture an age of 26.5, although it would make sense because you're 26 and a half years old, but hardly anyone captures decimals, right? They generally capture the whole number for the age. All right. So this is a random variable, and there's a specific type of data you're capturing here. Now, this is numeric data. And what I mean by numeric data, okay, let's say we've got these two people that capture the ages. Here we can say that if this was person A and this was person B, we can say that person A is 2 years older than person B because that difference makes sense to us. If you have one person that's 40 and another person that's 20, we can say this person here, person A, is twice the age of person B. All right, so that means the ratio makes sense. If you take the difference, the subtraction, that also makes sense. All right, whenever these two kind of operations make sense, when you take the difference or when you take the ratio, if those ratios and differences make sense, then that variable is a numeric variable. Okay, does everyone understand that? The chat, can I ask what pages, chapters? Oh, okay. So let me start from the top. First question. Okay. What page is chapters learning? Okay, learning in 1 is chapter 1 in your textbook. Okay, so let me just open my textbook here. Okay, so I don't know what pages. This is a bit of an older edition, but the chapter is still the same. Okay, so learning in 1 is, there you go. It's chapter 1, statistics and management. Okay, if you're not sure, okay, if you are still not sure, let me go into the ARC system and show you how to use it to kind of help you find what chapters in the textbook you need to focus on. So if you went to ARC and you went to your module, right? See here, you have all your different units. If you click on learning unit 1, and I do encourage you to look through the online material. Don't just look through your textbook. Actually look through this first before you go to your textbook. Here, when you click on it, you'll see there's all these activities, etc. If you click here on the left, see, you get all these different sections under theme 1. Let's click on data and statistics, right? Let's click here. Let's see what pops up. Okay, we've got all of this. If you read, there's a video as well you can access. And there you see it. Find the answers on chapter 1 of your textbook. All right, so the online material will direct you to which chapters you need to focus on in the textbook. Does that make sense? And you do this for all your learning units. Okay. Okay. All right, the next question I got was, what did I say about pi? Pi represents the proportion. So let me go back to here, all right? Mu, so remember we have the population, the full population. Okay, so the full population is what we can't really observe because we're not financially able to do that over time-wise, all right? Now, there's two symbols. Mu, this is average. This is your average, AVG, okay, average. And then pi is proportion. This is proportion. Let me give you an example of the difference, right? If I was taking the average age, let's say I had 5 people and the ages were 20, 25, 30, 28, and 22. If I wanted the average, there's 5 of them, I would add them up, okay? And I'll divide by how many they are. So that would give me an average. That's an average, okay? For proportion, let's say I want to know, let's say there are 10 people, right? So there's 10 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, now let's say 4 of them, I'm going to shade this in red, 4 of them smoke. 1, 2, 3, 4. What proportion of them smoke? Give that a shot in the chat. This is a quiz time. Okay, the question is, there's 10 of them. You count how many are red. That's the people that smoke. So what proportion of people smoke given this data? Give it a shot and put your answer in the chat. We have 10 people, 4 of them smoke. So what proportion smoke? Anyone? Can you give it in the chat? Very good. Very good. 40%. Yes. Nicely done. Very good. Okay, so you can see to work out proportion, it's different to average. You don't add up. You count. You're counting 4 because that's how many red markers you saw. So you're counting. So there's 4 of them out of the total, which is 10. And that's proportion. That's the difference between average and proportion. So your pi, this would be your pi, and this would be your mu. Everyone understands the difference? Does it answer the question of what pi is? Fantastic. Okay, let me see any other questions. All right, all good. No worries. Okay, so let's get back to the variable types. Let me just clear this out. And then just clear a new board. Create new board. Okay, fantastic. All right. So like I was saying, there's variable types. Okay. So the one example I gave you is age, right? Now I'm going to give you a different example of a variable type. Let's say the question asks, what is your gender? Okay, capture your gender. All right. Now, most question is they have two blocks. All right. Sometimes says more, but let's just kind of simplify it and just have male and female. So you would just tick which one you satisfy, right? Now, if I ticked here, someone else ticked male. I mean female. Someone else ticked female, right? The next person ticked female. Now, adding these two answers doesn't provide any sort of useful information. It makes no sense. You can't add female and male, right? And if the next person answers male, if you add up the three answers, it's not going to give you anything that makes sense. So that is an example of non-numerical data, all right? So there's two types of data, okay? And I'll write it down now. You have an idea. There's numerical and there's categorical. And the example I just showed you now is categorical. So let me write this here. Numerical, the other name for numerical is quantitative, okay? The same thing, quantitative. And for categorical, the other name for that is qualitative. It's the same thing as categorical. Qualitative. And this you can think of as categorical. And this is numeric. All right. Now, the example I gave you for gender, that would be qualitative. And for quantitative, you can think of the example as age. All right. So now there's different types of qualitative variables. Okay. Now let me start with the qualitative first. And these variables have measurement scales. So firstly, there's data types, which are indicated by these two, right? This is your data type. Okay. Then you can go one step further and describe what measurement scale they are. Now, qualitative or categorical variables has two types of scales, and I'll explain the difference now. I'll write the names and I'll explain it now. There is the nominal and there's ordinal. Okay, nominal and there's ordinal. Right. Let's start with nominal. Right. The example I just gave you now with gender. Okay. So remember, you could either answer male or female. Right. So male, female. The question you need to ask yourself is, yes, it is categorical. So that's how you know what data type it is. Now, once you figure out what data type, then you need to determine what the measurement scale is. That is it nominal or is it ordinal? And as the name ordinal, as the name says, ordinal, it means it can be ordered. Now, based on this question, can any of you say that there's an order to male and female? And what I mean by that, is there anything to say that males are higher than females or females are higher than males? And there isn't, okay? Equality. There is no ranking between the two. And because there's no ranking, it is nominal. Okay, so nominal means there's no order. Think of it as no order. All right? If the questioner says, what is your favorite fruit? Okay. Now I may say apples, but someone else would say oranges. It doesn't mean that apples are higher than oranges. Okay, because to me, apples are my favorite. To the other person, oranges is their favorite. So that's another example of nominal. Okay, does that make sense, everyone? Do you understand what nominal is? It's a categorical variable that has no order to its values. It makes sense? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. Fantastic. All right. So just as I said, nominal has no order. ordinal does have an order. Now let's go to an example of ordinal, right? I'm sure some of you would find questions like this, right? The question says, okay, let's think of a question. How would you rate the series Squid Game? If you don't know what that series is, it's perfectly fine. You can think of another TV series. Okay, it's quite arbitrary, and I haven't even watched Squid Game, but I know it's quite popular. The question is, what do you rate Squid Game? Okay, and your options are, right, first option is very boring. So we'll say V, boring, very boring. Oops, I forgot the N, forgive me. All right, the next option is dull. The next option is okay. Next option is exciting. And the last option is fantastic. I'll write it down. All right, now if you look at these options, would you say they have a ranking? As in, one could be higher than the other? What's your thoughts on this? Did you mention that in the chat? Do you think there's a ranking, or do you think there's no ranking? How many of you say ranking? How many say no ranking? Yes, yes, yes. Yes. Yep. Very good. Very good. That's exactly it. There is a ranking. So in other words, ranking, there's an order. There's an order to it. So this is an example of an ordinal variable. All right. So that's how you know the difference. Always ask yourself, is there a ranking? Is one higher than the other? So this is ranked. And that covers the measurement scale for categorical or qualitative variables. Now let's move on to quantitative variables. All right, because they also have measurement scales. Okay, so I'll write the measurement scales down and then I'll explain it. Now, quantitative has two levels. Okay, so first you get interval. I'll explain all of these in a second. And then you get ratio. And then ratio goes one step further into discrete and continuous. Okay, so don't panic. I will explain all of this right now. I think I'm going to say you there, but I think you can forgive me for that. All right, let's look at interval. All right, interval data. So firstly, once we know it's quantitative, so let's look at an example where the question captures your IQ. All right, so IQ, capturing your IQ. This is the example I'm giving now. I'm just going to put a line here. Keep it separate. All right, so let's say your IQ was 140, okay, and then they captured my IQ and it was 70. All right, now we can subtract these. The difference makes sense. That this means that your IQ is higher by 70. Okay, so the subtraction makes sense, right? However, when you take the ratio or when you multiply or when you divide these values, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so I know 140 is twice 70, but that does not mean you're twice as intelligent as me. Okay, that you can perform the operation, the numerical operation, but the answer makes no sense. So when the multiplication and the division doesn't make sense, but the subtraction does, then it's an interval. Okay, does everyone understand that? Always ask yourself that question. If you can subtract the answers and it makes sense, however, if you divide them and it doesn't make sense, then it is an interval data. You can use those kind of checks to determine that. Does that make sense, everyone? Anything unclear? No feedback. All good. Okay. All right. I'll come back to the chat if there's any questions. You can, in the meantime, you can just write your question out if you'd like. Can you kindly do another example where that would apply besides comparing IQ? You could look at, that's a question. Let's look at temperature. Okay, so temperature, if one was 30, one was 30 and one is 20, you could subtract them, right? And you get 10 degrees Celsius, okay? But the ratio doesn't make sense. So if you divide them or multiply them, 20 times 30, right? 20 times 30 doesn't really make sense intuitively. Does it make sense? Okay, fantastic. All right, so that is interval. Now let's move on to ratio data. Ratio data is, okay, so ratio data, you can add them, you can also divide them, and they would make sense, okay? Discrete data, so I did an example with age. You can think of age. Now discrete, all you need to ask yourself is, do they take whole numbers? Like if it takes 26.5, then it's not discrete, then it's continuous. But if it's 26 only, if the variable can only take whole numbers with no decimals, then it's discrete. Another way you can think of discrete is counting. Okay, whenever you're counting, like if the question asks how many let's say how many cars fill up at this petrol station every month, right? No one would say 500.5 cars, right? Because you're counting, it'll be whole numbers. So that's an example of discrete. When you're counting, it's whole numbers. Continuous is the opposite. You would have decimals, okay? It can take decimal values. If you're working on money-wise, right? And if you're looking at the nearest cent, then it's continuous data, all right? And that's how you decide whether it's discrete and continuous. So remember, the first stage is data type, and that'll tell you whether it's quantitative or qualitative. The next stage is a, what do you call this? Measurement scale. This is your measurement scale. All right, that's this part here. When you're asked to determine what the measurement scale is, they're asking you this, okay? Is it nominal or ordinal, or is it discrete or continuous? All right. Any questions? Everyone good? I am gonna stop there. That's what I wanted to cover in this session. And if there's any questions that you have, just by show, maybe just in the chat, can you let me know how many of you don't have? I'm assuming everyone has access to ARC here, right? So everyone's good. If any of you don't have access to ARC, maybe put your name in the chat here first, just so I have an idea. Anyone without access to ARC? Everyone's good. Okay, anyone without a calculator? A statistics calculator specifically. Okay, you're all good. Okay, one so far without a calculator. All right, no stats calculated. Okay, that's two so far. All right, so by Khalid, I'm assuming you raising your hand for the calculator and not you want to ask a question, but if you want to ask a question, please just unmute and ask away. Otherwise, I assume calculator. All right, so there's three so far with the calculator. All right, please by next week, try and get your calculator. All right. Nachi, what is the question? What's the difference between? What are you asking? With the calculator. You mean between the Sharp and the Casio? I assume that's what you're asking, between the two makes, right? They both can do the exact same thing. They can, right? It's just more user-friendly to use the Casio, and I will only be covering how to use the Casio calculator. The regular scientific calculator. Okay, so let me ask you this question. If you have your calculator and it has a stats button on it, specific to the Casio calculator, the Sharp also has a stats button. If it has a stats button, that means it can be both a scientific calculator and a statistics calculator, but it must have a stats button. If it doesn't have a stats button on it, then it is not a stats calculator, because you need the stats mode. How do you calculate? Like, I don't know, the normal. You get, okay, don't get confused with the financial calculator. Financial calculator is different. That enables you to work out present values and different kind of stuff. All right, we're not going to go into that. The stats calculator doesn't have that function, but it does have a designated stats mode. Caitlin, does that make sense? Like a financial calculator would have something like NPV on it. You can even have I don't know how to explain it to you, but it's called integrals and derivatives and stuff on it, which we don't use, and you would struggle to use that calculator for this course. So get a stats calculator that has a stats button on it. Get the Casio. If you don't have a calculator, I'm trying to look at this picture here. Is this the calculator you have? I'm trying to see the model here. FX, yeah, this should be fine. Yeah, FX82, yeah, that should be fine. See that mode button? Okay, there's a mode button on this calculator. If you press that, you will see a stats option on it. So if you have the calculator with you now, you can try it. If you press that mode button, you would get you would get scientific notation, you'll get a stats mode. So yeah, get the Casio FX series. Those are generally good enough for this. This is the one that VC. Yes, that's the one. And if VC recommended, yeah, sorry, I still have an older version in my mind, but it's pretty much the Casio FX series. What's the calculator? Why is book awesome picture. Great. Yes, we are done for today. All right, so I only covered a portion of Learning is One. The rest is left to you to read through. Okay, Casio FX series. Yes, that's right. So please read through the rest of chapter 1. If you have any questions about it, right, please do let me know. And read through the online learning materials. They are very useful, right? You'll drive a lot of benefit for it. And then next week, we're kicking off Learning Unit 2, right? Index numbers. Have your calculator with you, have your textbook with you, all right? That is the rule for every online session we have. You must have those two resources with you. Later on, we're going to need the stats tables and the formula sheet as well. The WhatsApp group. Okay, I'm not part of a WhatsApp group, but you students are more than welcome to create one for yourselves and add as many members as you wish. All right. So please feel free to do that. I do know some students derive benefit from that. So happy for you to do that, but I'm not part of any WhatsApp group. Any questions? Checking the questions. All right. Yeah, you should have access to this chat even after the session. So the link is here. You should be able to access it. But if you don't have it, you can email it to me and then I'll share it via an announcement so everyone gets it. We were advised to ask specific questions. Sky, do you mean you have a lot of questions? Because it's full time, you can ask them. Or what was quite a lot? There's a lot of questions. Okay, go for it. Go for it. This session is 4 questions. Could you kindly? All right, let's see how many. No, I'll try and go through as many as we can. see. Could you please provide your email address for any future questions or communication? All right, so, okay. If you don't have it, let me put it in the chat. All right. Second question, confirm. Okay, so I can't share a PDF version. Someone already asked that. But I thought everyone should know the textbook, especially in orientation. But if you don't know it, it is Applied Business Statistics by Wegner, W-E-G-N-E-R. So Applied Business Statistics. Right. Could you kindly share the, I'm just going to start from the bottom to the top. Could you kindly share the VDC? I don't have the community link, so I'm not really sure what you're talking about for that. Yeah, I don't really know about that. But everyone should have access to Teams here, so you should be able to communicate here if you would like. Or as you said, you'd like to do the WhatsApp group. What are the assessment methods? There aren't any group work that I know of. It's individual work. Remember, you have your for assessments. Okay, you have your ICE tasks, right? You have your assignments. There's 2 of them, right? And then you have your exam, right? There's none of them is group work. Okay, those are your assessments. Provide the due date. All ISAS due dates are on the calendar. I know one student already contacted me about it, so I can see that students should have access to it. But if you go to ARC and if you go to the calendar, you'll see all of it there. But if you even better, sorry, let me just make it easier for you. Right? I'm assuming everyone can still see my screen. If you go down, if you see all your units, if you go down right to the bottom, you will see your ICE task there. There's a unit for ICE. If you click on that, you'll see all your ICE tasks, and it'll even tell you the due date, due 30th April. So all ICE tasks are due 30th April, okay? All of them. And there's only 4 of them. Okay. Fantastic. They are based on, I think, 2 are performance and I think 2 are participation. Different times. Okay, I still answer that they're not due different times. That's it. Okay. You are required to not just tick that ICE task. Okay, you need to make an effort to answer those. It's not just there to give you a mark. It's actually there to help you revise for your exam. So do take them seriously and treat them as revision exercises. And it's made very easy for you guys. You really, it'll be quite difficult for you to perform badly because you have unlimited time and you have 3 attempts at it, and it takes your maximum mark. Okay, it takes the highest. So if you're very confident that you got it, you did well in the first try, you don't need to worry about doing it again. But if you're not, give it a best for the all 3 attempts, and it will take the highest. Right? Please guide the process of submitting assignments. ICE tasks you do online, and your assignments you would submit it on the ARC system as well, because it needs to go through, turn it in. PDF is definitely one of those acceptable formats. I'm not sure if anything else is, but PDF for sure. Please post the link on the ARC for anyone who isn't. The link is on the announcement, which is on the ARC. Does that make sense? I've posted an announcement, and on that announcement, if you check your announcements, the link is there. Make sense? Or the WhatsApp link. Oh, okay. And the arc. Okay, yes, I will do that by an announcement. Okay, so I'll do that after the session. I'm just going to any more questions. So if anyone wants to drop off, they can. But if you're interested in the answers for these questions, then yeah, please stay. Could you upload important documents such as assignment details? Module outlines. Okay, so here you're supposed to access into the portal. Okay, so if you go here, module information, right here, if you click, navigate to the module overview to get into the, my bad, hold on. Yeah, module overview, prescribed work, module pacer, and assessment information. If you click here, you'll find all of that from the student portal. Okay, I'll try to get them and put them there, but ideally you're supposed to go to the portal and access them. Will you be sharing slides for these lessons? If so, how detailed will they be? No, I'll try and share some slides. These are recordings which you can always access. Because of the migration to the different system, it's not really user-friendly to take our previous lecture slides. So we're going to have to try and reconvert them. Keep in mind, we only got access to the system very briefly before this thing actually went live this month. So we haven't had time to move lecture slides across. But we'll try and post additional resources to the existing ones that are there. All right. In terms of how detailed they will be, let me put it this way. You can't rely on them to prepare for the assignments or the exams. What you need to rely on is the online material, is your textbook, all right, and there's even your workbook that you access from the portal. Those three things will help you prepare for all your assessments, right? And my videos will help you kind of get an understanding of the content. Ideally, work through what you're going to cover every week. The calendar shows you what you're going to cover every week. So let's say, for instance, I'm going to cover Learning Unit 2 next week. Try and read the material before, because if you have questions about it, that's the best time to ask me, and I can actually go over it through in that session. So try not to rely on me covering the session for you for the first time. If you really want to make the most of it, work ahead of me, all right? And I'm pretty much there to consolidate your work and improve your understanding. Does that make sense, everyone? Hoping that's clear, because remember, this is distance learning, so no problem. And I'm just going to go more points. Would you provide a summary of what was covered in each class through an announcement? And the helpful missions. I could do that, but I mean, the lesson kind of covers that, but I could, yeah, kind of give you an outlook of what I covered in the session at the end of it. So, I mean, I can do it verbally or I can do it in an announcement. Let me just do it in an announcement. And recordings will be available on YouTube. All right. The link will not change. So the link that you use today is the link you're going to use throughout the semester. Our classes are every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Not every second week, every week on Wednesday at this time. All right. All right, I think that's pretty much it. All right. Any other questions? Anything unclear? I will make the recording available by tomorrow. And please, yeah, if there's anything you're not sure about, please do contact me. And then remember to have your calculator ready by next week and have your textbook at hand. Okay, and I will share the WhatsApp link by an announcement. I will do that. Okay, any questions? Going once? Going twice? The question, go for it. I think someone raised their hand. Yes, please ask away. Oh, there's an access. All right. Okay, so no questions. All right. All right, everyone. Have a good evening, and we will chat soon.